Hello everyone, back into today's second video. We're going to have a look at the weather for the next week to 10 days for today's second video. This will take us around the 5th of October. So we're going into the start of a new month with the week to 10 day updates now. We'll also have a look at what's happening in the tropical Atlantic at the end of the video. I'll show you CFS V2 for the next month. So earlier on this afternoon, we released the ECMWF 30-day ensemble forecast, so that's taking us through to the second half of October with the 30-day ECMWF extended model, and that's covering the weather not only for the UK but for many parts of Europe as well. So have a look at that and see what you think. It looks like it's starting off quite chilly really, although high pressure will bring a lot of dry weather. Quite cold conditions through early October. And then possibly turning a bit more unsettled later. We'll see whether that's showing up within the model output right now. And we're going to start off, though, by having a look at what's going on in the tropical Atlantic Ocean. So that's where we'll begin with today's video. So 3 areas of interest. We've got now subtropical depression Leslie just there in the northern part of the tropical Atlantic. So that's currently, as I say, subtropical depression. It's giving sustained winds of around 35 miles an hour. Let's see what's going on with that. So this is the forecast for subtropical storm Leslie, actually going up to a tropical storm again just around there. That's the forecast sometime today, then back down to a post-tropical storm or a subtropical storm, and just sort of meandering its way through this area of the Atlantic, really going nowhere up to the end of the week. So not much sign of Leslie doing very much, certainly before the weekend. Then we've got 2 areas of interest. We've got these yellow X's, so let's just have a look at each individual one of these, or orange X's I should say. So we've got disturbance 1, which got a 50% chance of cyclone formation in the next 48 hours. A broad area of low pressure located about 260 miles south of Cape Hatteras, North Carolina, continues to produce showers and thunderstorms on its northern side. Satellite and surface data indicate that the circulation of below is elongated and not well organised. However, this system could still become a tropical depression later today while it moves northwestwards. By tonight and Wednesday, additional development appears unlikely due to strong upper-level winds while the system moves northwards and also northwestwards near the southeastern United States coast. Regardless of tropical cyclone formation, this system is likely to bring scattered showers and thunderstorms across portions of northeastern South Carolina and eastern North Carolina later today and tonight. In addition, dangerous surf conditions and rip currents are expected along portions of the North Carolina coast today. For more information, please see products from your local National Weather Service office. So it's got a 50% chance of becoming a tropical storm in the next couple of days, and a 50% chance of becoming a tropical storm in the next 5 days. Sort of meandering its way around close to that southeastern coast of the United States. Got to keep an eye on it. It might develop into something a little bit more significant over the next day, or so. Then we've got this next orange X down here, much further south in the tropical Atlantic Ocean. So that's disturbance 2 with a 60% chance of cyclone formation in the next 48 hours. The remnants of former tropical storm Kirk are located around 950 miles east of the Windward Islands and are moving quickly westwards at around 25 miles an hour. This system continues to produce a large area of showers and thunderstorms along with winds to near gale force in gusts on its northern side. However, satellite data indicate that the system still lacks a closed circulation. This disturbance could redevelop into a tropical cyclone during the next day or 2 before it moves into an area of highly unfavourable upper-level winds while it approaches the Caribbean Sea. Interest in Windward and Leeward Islands should monitor the progress of this disturbance, as gusty winds and locally heavy rains are likely to develop over the next couple of days, even if the system does not redevelop into a tropical cyclone. For more information on this system, see high seas forecast issued by the National Weather Service. It's got a 60% chance of becoming a redeveloped tropical storm in the next 48 hours and a 60% chance of doing so in the next 5 days as well. So there are areas of interest at the moment, not too much to be concerned about. I suppose that system closest to the Carolinas is the one we've got to be keeping a bit of watchful eye on after what happened a couple of weeks ago over there. But overall, not too much to be concerned about at this point. We will continue to monitor. Right, so this is the Arctic Oscillation Observed and Forecast chart. I haven't looked at this for a little while. So the Arctic Oscillation is just an index that's reflecting the state of the atmosphere in the Arctic. It's not driving anything, it just tells you what the atmosphere is doing over the North Pole. So we can go right way back to start of June with this, and you see that overall the Arctic Oscillation has been in its positive phase through most of the summer and now on into the autumn as well. Yes, at times we have dipped down a little bit onto the negative side with the Arctic Oscillation side of September. Did so, for example, second half of August also had a brief period of negativity of the Arctic Oscillation, and around the start of July as well. But they are exceptions. The general trend over the past few months, going all the way back to April actually, has been for the Arctic Oscillation to be in a very positive phase. We went through a very negative phase with the AO. The last prolonged negative phase was kind of like mid to late February, and then through to the middle of March. That was our last protracted period of negativity of the AO. And then in April, the AO went positive, and since then, we've been in a strongly positive phase of the Arctic Oscillation. We are still very strongly positive at the moment. You can see that from where the black line finishes just there. And GFS ensembles keep us within that very positive phase of the AO for a few more days as well. However, they are forecasting as we go into the start of October for a drop in the Arctic Oscillation. It does look as though we might be heading into a more negative phase of the AO through the early part of October. If that happens, it would tell us that we are probably getting higher pressure developing over the North Pole. We might be starting to get some above average heights beginning to set up, maybe even blocking over the North Pole. If you get blocking over the pole, that will start to push cold air out of the pole and down into mid-latitudes. It doesn't guarantee, but we will get cold from that because, of course, where the blocking sits is the critical factor as to where the cold air is pushed out. It might be that blocking sitting in a position that pushes the cold air out into North America, for example, or Asia. So it might not get pushed out into Europe. But it's one of the things we keep an eye on, and you'll see this much more as we head in towards the winter season, actually. We will be keeping a close eye on what the Arctic Oscillation do. But signs of a change anyway there with the AO for the early part of October. Not particularly for the NAO though. So again, this is the same idea. The NAO is just an index that's reflecting the state of the atmosphere, this time in the North Atlantic, as opposed to the Arctic. The black line here tells us where we've been with the NAO. Again, going right back to the start of summer. That's 1st of June, just there. Red lines at the end where GFS ensembles forecasting the NAO to go. So as with the Arctic Oscillation being in its positive phase since around April or May, you can see that so too has the NAO been in a very strongly positive phase, particularly through the summer. Yes, at times we do get these dips down towards neutral, but never lasting very long, never sustained, soon going back up into positivity of the NAO again, and never actually going into negative NAO territory. So we have had a few days through the summer where the AO has been negative, but the NAO has never been so. It's either been positive or at its lowest neutral. That's where we are right now, with the NAO still in a very positive situation, and GFS ensembles are forecasting us to stay positive with the NAO through the first part of October as well. There is that outlier member just there that's going down into negative territory, and right at the very, very, very end, and this will be at the extended range of the GFS ensembles, it does appear that a lot of these ensemble members are moving down towards neutral, so a bit of a drop in the NAO perhaps taking place at some point through the second week of October. But overall, that is a strong forecast of the NAO to be staying in its positive phase through the rest of September and into October as well. So when the NAO is positive, it tells you basically got low pressure around Iceland and high pressure around the Azores. That's going to be the broad pattern that you've got going on then. Well, when that happens, that's kind of like the default setup for the North Atlantic and for Europe. That will produce westerly winds. But of course, if you've got the AO doing one thing, let's say the AO is going negative, the Arctic Oscillation is going negative because there's blocking appearing over North Pole, but at the same time the NAO is staying positive, so you've got westerlies still being signalled with low pressure around Iceland and high pressure through the Azores. Then you've got a problem because you've got the two indexes kind of like fighting one another, and that tells you that the atmosphere is going to be fighting one another. So it'll be interesting to see how that resolves itself as we go through into October. Centering temperature very quickly, that's lowering all the time, so the CET currently provisionally up to yesterday, 24th of September, standing now at 14.4. An anomaly at just half a degree, 0.5 of a degree above average. So that's come down a lot since the start of September, and I think that was in the 17s. That has lowered a lot over the past 3 weeks. Still got a few more days of September to go. There'll be another pretty big drop when this updates tomorrow, because it was a cold night last night through the CET region with frost in places. Then it'll probably stabilise a bit through Thursday and Friday, but then I suspect at the weekend, a couple more days where we'll see it dropping a bit. So in the end, I think we're going to come out just a little bit under 14 degrees. Going to come out somewhere probably around 13.8 or 13.9. And that is still close to average. It's not particularly noteworthy, but in this more modern era, actually a CET for September under 14 degrees Celsius tells you have had quite a coolish September really through the CET region. So I think 13.8, 13.9 is likely where we're going to finish with this, and that looked very, very unlikely when we had such a warm start to September. So it just goes to show you how things can change at this, particularly this time of year when things are cooling down a lot. These are the GFS temperature and precipitation ensembles for the next couple of weeks. The red line here is the 30-year upper air temperature average. Look at Solihull in the Midlands today. So still pretty cool with the upper air temperatures just for today. It was, as I say, cold night in the Midlands last night. We got temperatures going close to freezing. There was a pretty widespread ground frost. Some places had some air frost. That will be enough to shave another couple of tenths of a degree off the CT when it updates tomorrow, I would have thought. But then we arrest that decline just for a couple of days through Wednesday and Thursday. It will become warmer with the upper air temperatures lifting up. We're going to see temperatures into the upper teens, I would have thought, in the Midlands. Possibly at the outside 20 degrees, but down in the southeast I reckon 21, 22 is possible tomorrow, and maybe even 23 on Thursday. So that's kind of like going into the low 70s Fahrenheit, not lasting all that long. By the end of the week we see another drop in the temperature is taking place, and that takes us into what will be a cooler weekend. And then through the course of next week, well, a lot of uncertainty through the early part of next week. Anyway, several of these ensemble members look really very chilly indeed through the early part of next week. Several are holding up quite well, and then this scatter continues really throughout this first week of October. That's the 1st of October just there. So this is the 1st and into 2nd week of October. Just here, a lot of scatter within these ensemble members. So we have got warm ensemble members up there, but we have got cool ensemble members down there. In fact, quite cold, some of them ensemble members going down to -5 at 850 HPA. So still a lot of uncertainty really for October. What we can say is that it is likely to be dominated by high pressure, but the exact nature of the air mass associated with that high pressure is really quite difficult to ascertain indeed. We may well pull some quite cold air into that high pressure. I think we're on the periphery of it. Most of it will probably go into Scandinavia and northeastern parts of Europe. But it isn't out of the question. We could pull some quite cold air into that high pressure at times. Of course, at high pressure with cold air in October, you'd like to get night frost. You're probably going to get mist and fog patches as well. But in the sunshine by day, it still can feel reasonably pleasant. Although the sun is ever diminishing in its strength now, of course. As far as precipitation is concerned, a lot of dry weather coming up over the next week to 10 days. Possibly signs into the second week of October, things turning a little bit more unsettled. But that is a really, really long way off, and I think we do need to be very cautious about that at this stage. It does look as though the more reliable time frame, it is going to be very dry, dominated by high pressure. Here's the GFS of Friday, then. High pressure will be out to the west of the country on Friday, pulling down that cooler north to northeasterly wind. A lot of dry weather, but temperatures lowering at the end of the week. Into the weekend, high pressure's dominating the weather, so again, lots of dry weather coming up over the weekend. Temperatures quite pleasant by day, but rather chilly by night. Into next week, the high pressure remains just to our west, pulling down these cool sort of northerly winds on the eastern side of that area of high pressure. That explains why some of the GFS Ensemble members are dipping down through this early part of October. Let's go back to it. There's the dip with some of these ensemble members that's occurring during this early part of October. Some of them are getting quite close to -5 at 850 HPA. They are making more of this sort of northerly here around the 1st of October that we see there. They're making more of it than the operational run of the GFS. So on this run, most of the coldest of the air is actually going down into Scandinavia, but some of those ensemble members will be pulling that down into the UK, leading to possibly quite a cold start to next week. So even as early as the early part of next week, it is still uncertain exactly what's happening there. Then go through the course of next week. High pressure could be dominating weather, but always just that little bit to our west. So you'll notice again on Thursday, the 4th of October, for example, there's a high pressure just centred ever so slightly to the west of the UK, more centred over Ireland. Notice quite a plunge of northerly winds going down into Scandinavia. We're just again on the periphery of that cold northerly. So just an ever so slight adjustment, just nudge that high pressure that little bit further westwards to the west of Ireland, as opposed to being centred over Ireland. Just nudge it a little bit further westwards, and then that northerly would be plunging either down the North Sea or possibly even down into the UK. So very subtle differences are going to make quite a big difference to the feel of the weather under this high pressure through the first week of October, and that's what's causing so much uncertainty. That's how things are looking at day 10. Again, we've got those cold northerly winds down over Scandinavia, probably producing snow for northern parts of Scandinavia. Anyway, we remain under this ridge, just on the periphery of those colder northerly winds. In the more extended range, the high pressure dominates into the second week of October, before it just looks like it's starting to turn a little bit more unsettled there by Thursday the 11th. Possibly signs of a west-southwesterly flow beginning to return, and rain and wind may be threatening from off the Atlantic. That is a really, really long way out. ECMDF looks like this, so cooler on Friday over weekend, lots of dry weather, but rather chilly by night into the early part of next week. Again, you see that high pressure just to the west of the country in a week's time, Tuesday, 2nd of October. It is centred to the west of Ireland, and so again we are pulling down some quite chilly air here, maybe even some quite cold air from a north or northeasterly direction. How much of this cold air the ridge lets in through the course of next week is very uncertain at the moment, and it could turn out that actually the opening days of October are really quite cold, and I wouldn't totally rule out the chance of some fairly widespread air frost here if this high pressure just goes out far enough to let that cold air in that's moving down through Scandinavia. By day 10, we are seeing signs of a ridge dominating, whether it's stuck over top of the country. That is day 10, Friday 5th of October. It looks mainly dry, but it would be pretty cold, especially at night. Of course, the further on we're going into the autumn, the greater risk that we're going to get dense patches of fog and mist developing. So that is another thing to watch out for if this high pressure continues to stick around. And then that's the GEM. So again, we've got that high pressure just to our west on Friday, bringing down those cooler north to northeasterly winds. Sets us up for a mainly dry but quite chilly weekend. Now, the early part of next week does bring more of a northerly down with the GEM compared to the other two models. So this is Monday, 1st of October. High pressures to the west of Ireland. The trough is sinking down through Scandinavia. And there's those northerly winds moving down the North Sea. So that's pulling colder air towards us through the early part of next week. Then the high pressure builds back in. And of course, within quite cold air, there will be an increasing risk, I would have thought, of night frost and maybe some dense fog patches coming through with that as well. We get to day 10, still high pressure dominating the weather. The air's coming around at high pressure is a little bit sort of northeasterly though, so certainly not particularly warm with that, I wouldn't have thought, maybe even still quite chilly. So the broad theme for next week is definitely for high pressure to be dominating, but what the exact nature of the air mass is within this high pressure is uncertain, and it could actually turn out that next week, certainly the early part of next week anyway, is quite chilly, maybe even, you would say, rather cold. We'll keep an eye on it, see how it develops. Right, just have a look at the CFS V2 then for the next month before I go. So these are 500 of our heights broken down into week periods. The first week period will take us from the 25th of September to the 1st of October. Above average heights centred more or less over the top of the country, below average heights to the north and northeast. Quite a cold northwesterly wind going from Greenland into Scandinavia. We're just on the periphery of that with the proximity of a ridge close to the country. It's mainly dry. Temperatures are on a knife edge between being okay and probably a bit chilly. Then we go through to week 2, which is the 7th to the 8th of October. This high pressure is being pushed a little bit further away from us into the Atlantic. The below average heights are strengthening to our north, and also trough is sinking down through Scandinavia. That will be bringing northwesterly or possibly even slightly northerly winds to the country, and probably turning a bit more unsettled, especially so for northern areas as well. So maybe some rain moving in across the country from the north and the northwest, possibly with the air quite cold, something a bit wintry turning up over the higher ground of Scotland. That's week 3. It's the 9th through to the 15th of October, and by now the high pressure has been pushed back into the middle of the Atlantic. So this is turned properly unsettled, with below average heights centred more or less over the country, but particularly to the north of the country. There's a trough within the 500 millibar flow, so I think we're on the cold side of the jet stream. That just looks really quite chilly and very unsettled there as we're going up to the middle of October, with showers, longer spells of rain. And then we go through to week 4, which takes us from the 16th to the 22nd of October. And again, we've got the ridge in the middle of the Atlantic, below average heights to our north, but also setting up through the UK and the west of Europe. There's a definite trough within the 500 millibar flow, and as this there's a definite dip in 500 millibar flow, and as this trough sinks through the 500 millibar flow, we'll probably be entrenching quite cold air into it. So pretty cold and unsettled there, even into the second half of October. And if this is right, we could be shaping up for quite a cold October, you know, here. It's been a very long time since we had a cold October. But we could be on track here for quite a chilly month indeed, to say the least. So we're going to keep an eye on this. It's a developing situation, but I wouldn't be totally surprised if we came out. Let's not go too over the top, because it is only October, but we might come out with a surprisingly chilly first half to the month anyway. But we need to wait and see how much of a northerly influence that ridge next week lets in. Models are very much in disagreement about that, as are the GFS ensembles. But it's all looking quite interesting and a little bit different to what we all expected from this autumn. We thought after such a hot summer, the warmer than average temperatures were likely to go on, and they did have a go at staying warmer, those temperatures, through the early part of September. But September really has been a bit of a game changer, I think, with the temperature probably coming out quite a bit lower than most of us expected. And it looks like this switch into something cooler, a cooler regime, could start to gather pace a bit as we go into October. But let's wait and see. It's all very, very speculative bits. What we can say is that within the next week to 10 days, high pressure is going to be really quite dominant. Lots of dry and fine conditions. Just going to be a question of how much cold air from the north we let into that high pressure, or how much cold air from the north the high pressure lets in. So we should wait and see about that. Probably know a bit more tomorrow. And coming up tomorrow, we've got 5-day forecast, and of course we will have your regular week to 10 day update as well. But an extended one today. There's a lot going on. I want to explain what's happening with the subtleties with this pattern. So at almost 25 minutes, that's all for now. And thanks for watching.